that allows a few to bring in crude and then we refine and sell. If the government doesn't invest the way it has to invest in toll, I'm not quite sure we would make any real sense talking of a second refinery.
The COPEC Executive Secretary advised that the sustainability and paying off of tolls debt should be on the front burner before the country thinks about a second refinery.
It doesn't have to just go as a political statement that we need a second refinery when the very first one has created so much mess. As we speak today, it continues to sit in government books. I think we need to manage this one and ensure that we put it on the path of profitability, not what we are seeing currently.
TOR has started exporting gasoline to Nigeria following an increased production capacity from 45,000 metric tons to 60,000 tons.
Now, crude oil prices on the world market have seen a sharp rise in the last few days following a series of attacks in Nigeria and recent bushfires in Canada. Analysts say such gains could be short-lived, but what are the likely implications of these developments on Ghana's economy, we ask.
Oil prices have surged more than 70% since hitting decade lows earlier this year on hopes that the global oversupply is set to shrink due to declining U.S. production and a spate of supply disruptions from Nigeria and Venezuela. A series of attacks on Nigeria's oil infrastructure has pushed its output of crude close to a 22-year low, piling pressure on its finances. Recent bushfires in Canada have also knocked down some 700,000 barrels a day of production, adding to a number of production outages in recent weeks that have supported prices. Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Mohamed Amin Adams, explains the complexities on the market.
The uncertainty that is generated as a result of these two challenges is why prices are going up. The disruption in supply by about 2.5 million barrels alone is not what has led to the increase in price, because that would mean that supply has gone down, but if demand has not picked up, or if the surplus has not been totally wiped off, you are likely not to see prices going up.
But analysts say that most of that production is expected to come back online soon. But how will all these developments impact on Ghana, considering that we are both consumers and producers of oil?
I don't expect the increase in price to be immediate, because when there is increase in crude oil prices, it takes some time to reflect in the international prices of refined product. Now, on the side of oil production, you know that for this year, the benchmark price for crude oil was put at around $53 per barrel. The prices today are around $44 per barrel. You have some money in the stabilization fund. We will have a deficit in our budget.
And stakeholders in the building industry have bemoaned high taxes on building materials. They say it is a calculated attempt to collapse the business. It is believed that the formation of a housing fund from SNIT contributions could into the country's housing needs.
Accommodation is still a major challenge in the country as the figures in the housing deficit continue to soar. The country currently has a housing deficit of 1.7 million, and the figure is set to double in the next decade if measures are not put in place. Statistics revealed both the state housing and private sector produce 25,000 housing units annually, but will need to increase it to about 160,000 if the deficit is to be solved in the next 10 years. The state housing company, since independence till date, has built about 270,000 housing units, representing just about 5% of houses in the country. 95% of housing units in the country are private sector owned, but the challenge is the high cost of acquisition. The housing owners blame the high cost on high interest rates on loans and the high cost of building materials.
If you have to clear one container tax for over 25,000 Ghana cedis, having gone up at that level, one may think that it's enough for us to survive, and then you will be smashed with this VAT.
They lashed out at government's policy direction towards real estate development.
So the government must look at it again. He must review his decision to slap those taxes on us. He must create some environment, conducive environment for us to operate. When the private sector begins to grow, when the private sector begins to revamp, that is when he will be free.
He insisted the country's housing challenges may be solved if state contributions are used as the base for funding.